Well, howdy, and welcome back to Webby Rambles On. And today is going to be something a little new. We are going to do a Back to the Basics series, and this is going to tackle, key things that I think everyone should be aware of. Hopefully, this series is going to be, shorter episodes, and a little bit more to the point, less rambling than I normally do. Partially because I'm sick right now, and I wanted to get one out, and I'm like, I'll do this back to the basic thing that I've been thinking about for a while. So whenever I'm pressed for time, maybe I'll do one of these. This is going to be on probably the best basic thing out there, and that's the relative strength line at new highs. The relative strength line is a key concept that everyone needs to be well aware of. And I think, you've seen it with my quicksand Grateful Dead rules that are based off of relative strength line moving averages that I've developed and a system around that. That's for holding. But this is more for searching for stocks and, finding stocks very, very quickly and really on key times when the market is really volatile or maybe going into a mild correction or even going sideways, seeing which stocks have the relative strength line at new highs. So kind of buckle up. This is going to be a fast one. I'm serious this time. I know you don't believe me. So we're going to skip kind of the normal intro of, why I'm doing this and everything. We will do that on non-basic ones. So let's just get into this. Let's see. I'm going to share my market surge. And let's make sure we are all on the same page of what a relative strength line is before we go any further. So as you can see, I'm just going to pull up the S&P 500, that's SPY, which is pretty much the same thing. So this is our bogey, and or what we compare everything against in the market. And this is the standard one that everyone uses, but you could use a different bogey if you want. If you prefer the Qs, the Nasdaq, the Russell, or anything else, you can do that, and I'll walk you through how to change it. But I don't think most folks should change it from the relative strength versus the S&P 500 unless there's something very specific you're after. So the RS line that you see here that is blue and it's just a flat lining, that is because it's being measured against itself. So if there's a reason why that is just a flat line, because when it's compared against itself, well, it's not outperforming or underperforming. So let's just toggle over to the NASDAQ to get a little bit of a point of reference. So here is this green line on here. I'll blow it up a little bit. That is its relative performance to the S&P 500. So let's say on any given day, the S&P 500 was up 1%. If NASDAQ was up 1%, that line would just be flat on that day. But if the NASDAQ was up 1.5%, it would have a slight upward bias on that day. If it was, and the S&P was only up 1%. If it was, let's say it was flat on the day, the NASDAQ was flat on the day, and the S&P was up 1%, well, then that would be down a little bit. So any one day doesn't really matter that much. I mean, there are some key days, but you're looking at the trend. And so you're always looking at the trend of the relative strength line. And then, of course, those moving averages that we have on there that are part of the quicksand Grateful Dead. So let me just show you where to go in here. So go up to the little wrench up here in the top right, and we can go down to the relative strength line on here. So the default RS line, if it's not set to the S&P 500, you want to set it there now. So this is something that I developed, a couple decades ago, and we finally got it into market surge, where if you want to compare it against something else, you can. So you can do it against the group, which is why I originally developed it, but then ended up, not using that because I don't think it works very well. But it's, let's say, a symbol. You could do that with, let's say, the SMH. We're going to do the SMH, and you want to go through the different, I'm just changing it right there, and I'm going to do both of these too. No, I'll leave that one to the S&P. So putting it back on there. And now let's pull up a few stocks in the group. Okay, we'll go to the normal one, NVIDIA, which is a big part of the SMH. And then you can see how there are two different relative strength lines on here. One of these is being measured against the S&P 500, and the other one is against the SMH. But I may just put them both to the SMH. Oops, wrong button, Mike. All right, so it's that green line there this is NVIDIA's performance versus the SMH instead of versus SPY. And we can just go in here. Let's just look at the stocks in the group for a second. Stocks in the industry, and we'll just do them by the largest volume, just to make it easy. So I originally developed this where you could change it from the S&P for things like this if you want to look at the strongest stocks in the group relative to themselves. So this is a relative measure. So you can see that NVIDIA is doing pretty well versus SMH. Now we're going to go to the next stock, and this is AMD, and you can see that it's back underneath its moving average, a short-term moving average, but still above the other ones. And then you can go to something like this CAN, which is horrible, right? A horrible relative strength versus its peers. And then Broadcom, it's kind of similar to the other ones. But that's something a little bit more advanced than what we're going to be working on today. Today, we're keeping these basics. So we are going to put this back to versus the index, which you just click back on there. Now it puts it to the S&P, but you can always choose one of those if you want. I'm going to put both of them there. And while I'm at it, this is not the focus of today's session, but if you don't have these moving averages on here, these are the ones that I go with that you might want to do. And so for the daily, it's 21 days. The weekly, it's 8 weeks. And the monthly, it's 10. And that is for the default RS, or I call it RS1. And then RS2, daily is 50 days, weekly is 21, and the monthly is 24. So those are subject to change. But anyways, back to the basics. And whenever you make changes, always just go back to the S&P 500 and make sure that you've got a flat line there. That is a way to tell that it's working. So again, we are looking for relative outperformance using this very simple line on here. And you've got to remember that Bill had this line on all of his charts, even going before I was ever born. So that's a long time ago, He always had that RS line on there, and he had borrowed that from some other services that he was using prior to building his own database where they had this relative strength line. So it wasn't a Bill invention. It's kind of an industry standard because you're wanting your goal is to buy a leader. And so the easiest way to know if you're in a leader is by using that relative strength line. Is it truly outperforming the market, or is your stock just going up because the general market is going up? And sometimes that RS line will really stand out when you're in a bear market or a correction, even if it's just flat or has a slight upward bias. It really stands out during market corrections like what we had here in February to April, or I call it a market crash, but I'm kind of alone in there. So again, we're just going to focus in on this line, and it's helpful to look at it versus its moving averages to know, is it in a short-term or a long-term uptrend? So that's what the line is and how to kind of change those things. And you want to look at this on every single stock. It really gives things away if it is under accumulation and really beating the market or not. So let's just do kind of my go-to screen for the relative strength is stocks that are near new highs. And this is a very simple screen. Everyone should do it. I used to, this was one of the first screens I created back in 1997 and would run it every day. And I refer to it as my gold screen because it was worth its weight in gold. It had nothing to do with gold stocks. It was just so good. It would get me pretty much all my best merchandise. And it's just so simple. So I pre-built it here, the RS line at new highs. Let's go in here. It's just some very basic things. So first thing I did was exclude, let me unzoom this so you can see this a little bit better. I put the ETF and closed-end funds to no, just to exclude those. That's that first line there. So we went from 11,000 instruments down to 6,000. Then some basic parameters here for volume. Typically, I have my volume a lot higher. I use dollar volume, not share volume. So dollar volume right here at I have it at 5 million. Typically, I use 75 million, but I know some people like things a little thinner. So I moved it down to 5,000 here, but really 75 million, you just put a little 7 there and then you're good to go. But we're going to not do that. And then just a basic price level. I always go with $10. That was a bill thing. You could go higher, you could go a little lower if you want, but I think 10 is about right. And then this is the important thing. In the price and volume area, you've got your relative strength line at new highs. Just click that as yes. Simple as that. Now, today, it's August 21st after the close. And so this is the day before Powell talks in Jackson Hole. So hopefully that goes well. We will see. So it's only 66 names. And that's the beauty of it is typically a very small list of names that you'll get in. And trust me, if you put some other parameters, like move that up to 75, then you're only dealing with 19 names. In fact, let's just do that for now. We'll just do these because we're just keeping it basic. Now we are going to, we'll just have this sorted by the most liquid. So we're going to go right there. And let me minimize this. Okay. You can see on here that this RS line is at new highs and that we look back over a 52-week time frame. Let's go over it to a weekly. Now, you don't just go and buy any stock that has an RS line at new highs. It has to be in position, but this is telling you that it's leading the rest of the market because that RS line is at new highs. So at minimum, what I would do is put this in a watch list if it wasn't already there. And the easiest way to do that is just clicking on this little flag up here, boom, right there, up here. Or same thing you can do it is hit the F5 button, which I just did. Now, if you're on a laptop or you've got a weird keyboard, sometimes you'll have to hit the function key as well as the F5. But on most keyboards, you can just hit the F5 and it flags it. When you're done, I'll just jump ahead to that so I don't forget. You can just go into your flagged symbols list here. Let me unflag that one. And so this is going to be all the ones that you can then just move into your other watch list. Just take it and move it over, to any of your other watch lists in there. But let's go back to the screen. Let's make sure that we have the screen. View results. Okay, so NEM was the first one, and we're going to flag that. And this is some of these stocks that may or may not have positions in, and this is just for demonstration purposes of the RS line. It's not anything. This is not buy or sell recommendations. I'm not an investment advisor. I cannot give you investment advice. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. So this is just for education and for sleep aid. But maybe today won't be a sleep aid if I can do this quickly. So that RS line is at new highs. It's telling you it is outperforming the S&P for the last year. Now, INSM, obviously, we'll go ahead and flag that as well just because it's in new highs and it's so strong, but it's well out of position, right? Like the last place to buy it would have been there or maybe there, but or on that gap up, but certainly not way up here. But I'm flagging it anyways, flag that one. And then this one was not that far, out of there, this little mini cup with high handle or bounce off the 21 day or upside reversal outside day. There's lots of things on there. But again, this RS line at new highs that would have gotten it on your radar right over there because you can see, going back, well, there. At that point, looks like once it got to that level, it would have shown up on here as an RS line at new highs. Go to the next one. I'm going to stop flagging these and I'm just hitting the space bar to get to the next stock. And so this one is interesting because it's also in the gold miners. So what that's telling me is the gold mine space is hot. So I would want to go through each one of the stocks in that group and change the RS line as we did over here, go in here and change it to like GDX or similar, the kind of the ETF for that sector. I think that works better, frankly, than our industry group, because our industry groups right now are price weighted, which I hate. And we're in the process of changing that to market cap weighted, which I love, but that's not out yet. So until we get that resolved, I would go with a broad ETFs like an SMH or GDX if it's gold, or, ITB or XHB if it's home builders, or XBI if it's biotechs, and I think you follow. Let's go to the next one. We're just space barring through, looking for something that's in position that is not broken. Again, here's another gold one. That one's too wild for me. This one is just a new issue, so you can't really use it on there. So I think you get the picture that if you were doing this every day, this one would have shown up, maybe yesterday or a couple days ago. Again, this one would have shown up right there, right? Because that was a new high. So the good thing about this list is it's one of the first things that I run early on in the day, because it takes about 20 minutes or so before it starts working on the new day. And I'm always looking at it to see which stocks are making new highs on their RS. And so none of these are really in position. So let's go. There's another gold stock. Let's go. Okay, that was the end of that list. Let's go and change that. No, I said I was going to keep this basic. So that is on your most basic level. Now, there's another way that you can do this that is easy, and that is using the blue dot, which there's several ways to get there, but up here in the open stock ideas, you can click on that and scroll down here to where it says RS line blue dot. So there's two stocks that made it through there today. So you can click on that and sort it by today. So these two stocks, the GEOS and the ARK, made it through there today. So what does that mean? So this is something that we developed, and I worked with Arusha on this way back when he was running Market Surge, and it was Market Smith at the time. And so it combined two things, a pattern rec that I designed as well as the RS line. Because if the RS line was at a new high, as it was forming a base or breaking out, it would show up with this blue dot to make sure you didn't miss it. And then in this list, but this had to be a growth 250 stock, and it had to be within a base. So it was really a subset of a subset. And you can click in here to see ones in the past. So this one triggered on the 19th, this one triggered on the 18th, that one triggered on the 14th. Well, it's being bought out, and so on. Let's see. This one was on the 14th. So it's a really quick and easy way of finding ideas. I mean, it's really kind of as simple as that. There's another thing that you can use. I don't use it because I've had need to do some quality control on it to see if it's working as intended. But assuming that it is, something I'm going to be adding to my workflow is, let's just build this from scratch, is the RS line within 5% of its highs. So I'm just going to do a 5% of highs. So I'm just going to create this screen real quick just to show you how easy it is. I like putting the things that I use all the time up in my favorites. So you just click up there, and I've got some basic stuff in here. So I'm going to do price greater than $10. I'm going to do, I'm going to keep this simple. Exclude closed-end funds right there. And do average volume. Let's do it greater than 25 million. So put that in there. And then let's just go into price and volume. We're going to scroll down to, there's RS line at new highs. We're not doing that one, but RS line within 5% of their 52-week high. We're going to click on yes right there. See how many names we get. 215. Okay, that's pretty good. So let's view those results. And let's, excuse me, go down here and let's just sort that by composite rating. So the best ones first. And let's go to the weekly so you can get a little bit more info. I'm going to minimize that. So you're going through, and obviously this one is extended, but that RS line is close to highs. And let's look for one that's in position. We're just going to spacebar through. And again, you can see this RS line is not at highs, but it's near highs. So it appears to be working with these. And this one, again, within 5% of its 52-week high. So going back to August, yeah, it's working there because this was the high in there. So this is a quick way. Oh, so that one looks interesting. So then you would study that some more. You would just go ahead and flag that one and then go back and study it because it's giving you and fix. I might have a position in that one. I closed down my brokerage account. So, but anyways, the point isn't the stocks right now, but the way of finding these. So it is as simple as that. Again, RS line, within 5% of their highs. Now, if you wanted to see where the weakness in the market was, you can flip this upside down. So we're going to go to RS line new highs. Instead of having to rebuild this one from scratch, we're just going to click on this little thing, the little drop down caret, whatever they're called, and hit copy. So now it's going to be the exact same parameters, and we're going to do new lows. Now, this isn't to search for shorts, but this is more to search for what's not working and what themes or sectors are not working. So we're going to click on the RS line at new highs and get rid of that. And then we're going to go back into price and volume, go down to RS line at new lows. Where is that? Down here. And you can see how I've got the little star next to the RS line at new highs. That's what put it up in the favorites. So I don't have that on the new lows because I never use it, but let's just do it here. Click yes. I'm gonna put a star on that 5% because I'm gonna start using that now. Okay, so 10 stocks. Let's change this to 5 million. Okay, so 25 stocks with an RS line at new lows. So let's take a look at those results. And again, we're going to look at this from market cap. And we'll go out to the weekly. So these, what I'm doing now is I'm looking at this and saying, okay, is there a theme that I'm going to pick up on? The first one that we skipped was Target. So Target is looking weak, and it has been looking weak for a long period of time. And so what is high tends to go higher, what's low tends to go lower. So much stuff I could talk about on this one that I'm not, because I'm trying to make this a quick one. So another one you can see that's just breaking down Owl. And a lot of times these are ones that looked really good not that long ago. Like Blue Owl over here looked great. It just didn't work out. And now your RS line is at a new low, and it's telling you stay away. All these just dogs at the moment. Doesn't mean they can't change. Just like the Blue Owl was doing really well before, and now it's doing poorly. And so you can see these stocks would have made it. A lot of these stocks have been in a downtrend, and you would have seen them in here before. And I'm not really seeing a theme as I go through this. So what you can do is go down in the list and look at the sectors or industry groups. So you can just sort it by sector in alpha. And then, oops, it's a little temperamental today. Okay, so you're just looking for any type of theme here. And so there's a few in the energy space and a few in the finance space, and a few in the medical, but everything else is just kind of random. And then you'll go over here and see on an industry group level, is there a theme that you're seeing there? And not really, it's kind of spread out. So you don't always get that extra info in there, but it is, you know, I would say that's a low priority item to do. It's more, you might do that on the weekend, but not during the day. Whereas the RS line at new highs, you would want to do it every day, several times a day, to see if anything changes in there. And this one, even if you only did it once a month, just to get a feel for what's not working, to kind of stay away from that area, then I think you are fine. So, wow, that was so great. Well, I don't know how great it was. It was just short. And, I was going to do some music today, but I'm going to keep this one super, super short. Let me stop sharing because this is a Webby Rambles on Basic, our first one of a new series. Wow. Well, that's pretty cool. So we're going to keep this under 30 minutes. I'm going to leave out all the normal basic stuff. So I hope you got a lot out of this. And next time we'll probably do a normal one, or maybe we'll do a few more of these basics, and just to get everyone up to speed, I'm going to do another one on 3 weeks tight, and that one is a little bit more complex, so I'm not sure if we can get through that one as quickly. But the other thing I wanted to say is, please start putting in, you could either send it to me on, no, probably easiest to just have them all in the same place. So in the YouTube comments, if you have a kind of an ask me anything question, go ahead and put it in there. I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, but what I'm going to start doing is, occasionally go through and pick a question that someone asked and then answer it. Now, it can't be specific, like, oh, I bought Cisco at this price and I have, 13% of my account in there. Now, what do I do? I can't do those types of questions, the general questions. Put them in there in the comments on YouTube, and I'll start picking some of those and just addressing them during. I might just do one episode and just answer a bunch of those, or I might sprinkle them into some of these. We'll see. So with that, now remember, even though this was a Webby Basics, you still have to go and be kind to someone, because that is your tuition for every one of these, is go and be kind to someone out there. And with that said, until next time, peace out.